EntreCast.
The albatross was cut free from my neck. It was quite freeing. And I think because I had known it was going to be going to a good place, that really helped it feel like, okay, no strings attached. Like I can let this baby go. I think I did a lot of the mental work earlier, to be completely honest, just as part of the exit. Like I had 2 months to shore up all the SOPs and everything. And so in that respect, I, like, every time I did one, it was almost a meditation for like what was going to happen and that transfer.
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, sharing our methods and strategies for success. Join in on our conversations with business owners as we highlight their triumphs and detail how they overcame the challenges they faced while continuing to grow and scale their business. It's time to think life, think success, and think business with your host, Tyler Martin.
Today, we have a captivating episode featuring digital entrepreneur and SEO expert Lauren Gaggioli. Discover how she turned a passion for education into a thriving online business and journeyed through the world of SEO to drive remarkable traffic without ad spend. Lauren uncovers the secrets behind naming your true purpose and the power of organic marketing. Get ready to be inspired by her entrepreneurial journey and valuable strategies. Let's get started. Hey, Lauren, welcome to the Think Business with Tyler podcast show. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me here, Tyler. I am doing great.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. Hey, I'd love to start out with the way I normally start out with is I'd love to know what you do professionally. And then if you'd also share something about yourself personally.
Absolutely. So I've been a digital entrepreneur for over a decade. Really love building passive online businesses. My first company was an ACT/SAT prep company where I delivered asynchronous courses. I grew that and exited in 2021. And now I help other online entrepreneurs build their SEO and organic marketing presence.
Very cool.
On the personal side, I love to run. I am a Disney nut, so Run Disney is kind of my jam. I did the Dopey in 2023, which is a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, and a full marathon in 4 consecutive days. So I'm a little bit of a nut, but I got to get this energy out somewhere. So it's either working on the business or running the miles.
Well, wait, I want to make sure I understand this because my first question to you was going to be, which one did you do? You just now made it sound like you did all 4.
I did.
That's psycho.
Yes, I agree. We rode a roller coaster in the middle of the marathon. That was a big mistake. I was very dizzy for another 5 miles. So it was crazy. I don't know that I will ever do a marathon again. I love half marathons. That's more my distance.
Wow. So how many, is this the first year you've done the Disney one or do you do it every year?
I don't do them every year. I've got 2 little kids. And so it's very challenging and also very expensive and getting more expensive by the minute. Disney just got their hooks in us. But I try to do at least one of the races a year if I possibly can.
So you said there was a 5K, 10K, half marathon, and marathon?
Mm-hmm. That's in January. Yeah.
And you did all 4? And they're one day after another. How did you, because half marathon, I know for me at least, of course, I'm a lot older than you, my body needs the recovery. How do you go from a half marathon to a marathon one day after another? Isn't that pretty grueling on your body?
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Wow.
The first couple miles of the marathon, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it because I didn't actually train for it. My dad passed away and I was a mess. So I just didn't train and I went and I was like, if I have to leave, I just leave. And I could feel the blood pooling in my ankles on the final day and was like, oh no, this is not good. But I made it. My teammates, they dragged me through and I'm really grateful for them.
It is funny. I did for first time ever, I did a half marathon last year. And it is funny when you get, and I imagine a marathon the same way, when you get to that certain point, I think it was 10 miles, you just kind of you're not stopping at that point. You're either dragging me across the line or I'm making it no matter what. And it's you don't even feel anything, or at least I didn't. I didn't feel anything. It wasn't really about stopping anymore. It was, you're just in this mode. Is that kind of how the way it was for the marathon one in particular?
It is. And because I'd never run a marathon, one of my teammates who gave me the best bit of advice, he said, think of every mile in a marathon. He's like, you run halves. So just think of every mile as a half mile and like the mental marker of that when you're running the marathon. And it was the best advice. It got me through. I was like, I don't know that if I had been counting individual miles, I would have made it. So I was really grateful for that.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
I don't know that if I had been counting individual miles, I would have made it. So I was really grateful for that.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, congratulations. That says a lot about your mental toughness to be able to do that, especially during a time of tragedy to add to that. Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
So I want to get into a little bit about your story as far as your digital marketing world.
Yeah.
So you had your first business, I believe it was your first business. You were a solopreneur, but it sounds like it was wrapped into your identity a lot too, in terms of building that business. Then you ultimately sold it. Could you kind of take us through that story? Like, what was the business? How did you get it started? How did you know to get into that area? Whole bunch of stuff like that I'll kind of dig into.
Yeah. So I got started with one of the large test prep firms. I was pursuing acting in LA and I needed an off hours gig. And so to keep myself open for auditions. So I started tutoring because I was always very academically inclined and realized very quickly that what I was doing was outpacing what the company's like standard protocols were. I was getting a lot of referrals. And in thanks for the many thousands of dollars of referrals, I had given to this company. I got like a $50 gift card at Christmas. And I was like, well, that's kind of BS. So I went off all on my own and started developing my own curriculum and tutoring through word of mouth. And I had a client who pointed me in the direction of Twitter, of all things, at the time. And he said, Lauren, like, you're tutoring my daughter. I don't understand why you're not present on social. And I was like, that is the weirdest question I've ever gotten from a parent of a student. And so he sort of pointed me in that direction. I became aware of people like Pat Flynn and Michael Hyatt at the time, who was doing all the social media marketing stuff. This was like probably 2012. And so I ruminated on it, got married in 2013, and realized very quickly that I would never see my husband if I kept tutoring, and that the family we hoped to have, this was going to be problematic down the line. So I built myself a life raft and started delivering online courses and kind of generating that passive income. And it was riding two very different horses for a while. I drove 11,000 miles in the 6 months that I launched the company because I was still tutoring. And my territory was basically, Disneyland to SeaWorld at that point because we were living in San Diego. So lots of time on the road. I wouldn't recommend that. Like, the 2-horse thing is not good. But I really found that I initially tried to build the company where I looked on the surface like my competitors. I looked like the Kaplans and the Princeton Reviews of the world. And I found very quickly that lack of personalization, people didn't understand the difference of working with somebody who would be having the conversation with them and then also doing the teaching. And so I started podcasting in the college admissions space. And I never wanted to have like that cult of personality. And I certainly wouldn't call it a cult. We're very small potatoes. But people knew that I was higher scores test prep. And so when I realized through the pandemic, through having kids, through kind of refining my approach to purpose, that I was on the wrong path, that I know my thoughts on education, I homeschool my kids, like my thoughts on education at large started to feel at odds with the college admissions process and a lot of the conversations that were happening around COVID and what I was having to sort of defend. And I didn't love that both the test makers and the colleges were kind of doing kids dirty. So I decided to leave. And it was quite the process of pulling my identity as this go-getter entrepreneur, out of the business enough to be able to position it for sale. And I think for a long time, I thought I was the magic as opposed to the curriculums and the IP that I had developed. And so it was just quite the journey of disentangling the entrepreneurial enmeshment, as I call it, where our self-worth fluctuates with our P&L.
Yeah. Dig into that too. I mean, I've got so many questions of what you just said, but I do want to touch on that. What do you mean by that? Like, what we're all about is our PL basically. What do you mean by that? Dig into it.
So I noticed this trend, and I think it's very much tied to hustle culture, where when our sense of self-worth, like how a day goes, is based on how many orders were placed. Like, that's a problem, right? If we get that granular, then we're not going to be able to see the trends at large. And also, if our self-worth is reliant upon that, where we feel like we're saving our clients, if we feel like we're constantly going over the boundaries of the scope of work that has been promised, we're undercharging, all of those things. And I think this is very pervasive in the solopreneur space. We have an issue, right? Our business is us. We are our business. And there's not a clear and healthy boundary. And I think the time that I realized this was happening, I'd never done this before, but after like 2 years of working really, really hard to get this company off the ground and not taking really even a day off, like I constantly was in my inbox, we went on a 2-week vacation to the UK. And I really needed to disentangle. I was like, I have to step back. And in that time, I made my mortgage in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Which I'd never done before. And, as a solopreneur and like you're just grinding away, there was like this real power to saying, if I step back and let this thing that I built that's over there breathe a little bit, maybe it can still serve me and still deliver. And I credit organic marketing with why that happened, because getting found in search was really a viable piece of that process.
Okay. And when you talked about healthy boundaries, what do you feel like when you're running a business? Like, how do you keep those healthy boundaries? Like, what is a healthy boundary? I mean, what do you do? Like, what's your opinion on that?
So I do things like I have a tendency to just like get into my inbox anytime I pick up my phone. So I do things to make my phone less attractive. So like I think this is a Cal Newport recommendation. I'll turn the grayscale on because then my phone is less vibrant. Obviously notifications off, keep it on silent, those sort of things.
Right.
Because I think there's just like this scope creep that happens. And it's just right there. Everything, the whole world is at your fingertips. So I like to kind of set healthier boundaries around tech. I used to work at night. Now I don't. If I have to do work, I make it hurt me, the lady who likes to sleep in a little bit. And I will be like, well, then I'm getting up early. And then there's like a clear end to the time because my children will wake up eventually. So really kind of putting parameters around it where I can't just constantly be connected.
Okay. And what was it like as so you go down the solopreneur journey. What was that like as you were growing the business? Did it just all kind of just happen? You said you talk about organic marketing, which I believe is search engine optimization.
Yes.
What you mostly mean. What was that like? Did it just happen overnight? Do you have to spend, 6 months before you start to see any search results? How fast did it all happen?
That's a really great question. The tipping point for me, I'm a little bit of a scattergun, right?
Okay.
I'm not like I show up this time every day with my content. That's not how I worked. So I think it was probably about a year in when I got an order from somebody who I had never spoken to and didn't know the name, didn't recognize it. And it was very clear to me, oh, they found me through the internet.
Wow.
And like, I just, through the power of the copy on the page, through Google serving this inbound lead to me and I don't even know what page they hit first. I was like, wow, okay, this is the churn, right? And it's one of those things that, again, if you get too granular on it, you won't see the growth. But if you zoom out, you can see that trend over time. And if you keep creating helpful content that is keyword researched and positioned to help your ideal client, then you have a way to sort of pave the path to what you offer. I had a lot of little breadcrumbs along the way from folks, and I was doing very imperfect action around SEO. I knew just enough to figure out which keywords were viable and then write posts about that. I didn't do everything right, but by consistently showing up, if not at the same date and time every single week, I was able to start to churn more and more traffic. And when we hit our peak, came none too soon because I had my daughter in October of 2017. Summer of 2017, we sort of tipped. And that was when I started driving 16,000 new users to the site through organic search, no ad spend, every single month.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And then what type of conversions are you talking about when you're talking 16,000 people? Are you
Way too low at that point because
Okay.
I hadn't put it all together.
okay?
But that's where I really started to understand and dig in kind of retrospectively. I was like, okay, that was the tipping point. And I was making, anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000 a month just for sending emails.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was really the only thing I did because I did have people opting in. And I think the podcast helped too. Podcasting is such a lovely nurture tool. It's not as powerful, I think, as driving leads because it takes time to engage with. So it's a great way to bring people in and then just keep them connected to you. So people would be listening to the college admissions podcast. I'm interviewing other people who were my potential lead sources as well that could refer business to me, but also I'm featuring them. And then through that, I was the trusted voice because I was the host, And so I think it smoothed the path for people to buy on the other side, but having that really amazing opt-in and meeting search intent correctly. So when people have an informational query, giving them something free, it's like do you want to have a cup of coffee? Can I buy you a cup of coffee of the social or the SEO world? And then when they come to your sales pages, really making everything clear. I think I did a lot of iterations on the sales pages and really making sure that pricing was really above board. Everybody could see what they were getting into, what was being promised, saying it 5 different ways, putting in video, making sure it's visually appealing. But when they had that transactional query, all that information is sitting there for them. That really ups the conversion. So without access to those metrics anymore, I can't really say what the actual conversion was, but on average, 1% of people buy. That's you're on the transactional side. And then on average for email opt-ins, it's between 3 and 5% is kind of average. So positioning your offers, whether they're free or paid, having singular offers for content, sort of what I call content verticals. So for example, on my SEO site now, in the SEO channel, there's a DIY audit at the end of every post I create. It's the same offer, but I can pivot the content to welcome people in that way.
Got it. Now, you talked about, so there's copywriting on your webpage and then there's email marketing
Yes.
that you're sending out to people. Did you do your own copywriting and email marketing? Would be question 1. And then question 2, if it's yes, because you're shaking your head yes. How did you learn that? And how would you recommend other people learn that?
So I do all my own, or I did, I should say, all my own writing.
Right.
I've shifted things a little bit. I realized I speak faster than I write. I love writing, but I only have so many words in me. So for my consulting clients, I have an SEO copywriter. I come up with strategy. She executes it. What I'm doing is giving her my videos now, and she's putting it into SEO optimized form in the written word. So it's helping sort of speed up because I have so many ideas. I just sometimes have to just ship,
Right.
But I do recommend finding your own voice. That's really important. And I think especially if you are a solopreneur or somebody who wants to have a more unified brand voice, then being able to hone your own voice is really powerful, and it takes practice. It's the kind of thing that I really don't think you need, extensive lessons or anything like that. Obviously it needs to be grammatically correct and all that. You should have somebody proof it. But as somebody who loves to communicate through the written word, it can be really powerful to explore that. And this is a place where I think AI is going to maybe be problematic for some folks who are leveraging it too much, because when you look at at least right now,
Right.
when you look at AI generated content, I think readers in particular know, and they know it's generated by a computer. And there's sort of that ineffable quality that I think it's going to take a long time for generative AI to mimic. And even then, it's only mimicking. So, we as business owners do have to communicate through the written word in our emails, even just interpersonally, like in an office. Even if you have somebody doing your front facing copy, you still have to be in communication. And if you want your voice to be present, it just takes practicing and almost thinking of it like almost journaling is how I write a lot of my copy. I'll do the exercises. I'll put content out there. I'll see how it performs, and then I'll reflect upon it and go, okay, what are the takeaways? And then explore that, keyword research that, and then put it into linear form. So I think every piece that you write should be transformative, and thinking about what's the arc of transformation, and, educating people really is what it comes down to. So pretend you're teaching somebody who knows nothing. And what are the logical leaps that you have to help bridge those gaps and explain the whys and wherefores? And by keeping that in mind and creating that educational flow, you're ultimately able to ingratiate yourself with people, because people are grateful
Right.
if they're searching queries on Google, they want something. And if you can be the person to help them, then you win. So
If you're a business owner feeling stuck in your business, overwhelmed, responsible for everything that happens, and working long hours, Tyler helps his clients develop processes, hire high-performing team members, and better understand their financial metrics and numbers to allow for a more predictable, less hands-on business. To schedule a free, no-pressure consultation, head to thinktyler.com and click the meeting button. Tyler would love to see if he can help you work on your business, not in your business. Schedule a consultation today at thinktyler.com. Think life, think success, think business.
because people are grateful if they're searching queries on Google, they want something. And if you can be the person to help them, then you win. So
Right. So I want to kind of shift forward a little bit. How does the sale? So one, how do you decide you want to sell, and then how does that play out? Like, is it a long process to the sales? Is there a short process? And what was the emotional part of actually selling?
yeah. So I had actually known a lot longer than I think I probably ever admitted, even to myself, that I was ready to leave.
Okay.
And I just didn't know what that meant. I didn't even realize, honestly, that selling was a possibility.
Sure.
So I had a coaching call with a friend, Leslie Samuel, who some people know from social media marketing world. He often MCs. He's also a biology teacher and does bio content on the internet. It's fantastic. He's lovely. And he was giving away coaching calls. And I was like, well, I'm going to talk to him because we've never talked about this before. And I gave him my numbers and he was like, Lauren, why are you thinking of just shutting this down? He's like, people kill for these numbers. I was like, really? It's one of those things that I think you don't realize the value until somebody else tells you it's valuable. And
Right.
he goes, oh yeah. He's like, do not turn this off. Do not just say in a year, this is now dead. Find a buyer. And I went to my network. And the second person I contacted was like, please do not email anyone else. I want this. I will figure it out. And it was a great, kind of back of the napkin deal. We still went through a lawyer and made sure that everything was on the up and up, but no broker fees. And I think because I was selling to a friend who I trusted, she had been a 3-time guest on my show. We'd done a mastermind
Wow.
together. Love Kat. She's wonderful and a good steward of children and their families through the admissions process. So this was going to be a value add for her, a value add for her clients, for her business. And so it felt like a win all around. And so that helped ease some of the tension that could have certainly been there. But yeah, she I know is doing a really good job to take care of the clients who are buying based on my words that now live on a site I don't own. and my content, my courses, still my face. And I know she's really taking care of those families.
Was it emotional selling the business, or was it like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm free of it?
The albatross was cut free from my neck. It was quite freeing. And I think because I had known it was going to be going to a good place, that really helped it feel like, okay, no strings attached. Like I can let this baby go. And I think I did a lot of the mental work earlier, to be completely honest, just as part of the exit. Like I had 2 months to shore up all the SOPs and everything. And so in that respect, I, like, every time I did one, it was almost a meditation for like what was going to happen and that transfer. So it definitely, like, once it was gone, I was happy. And I got to like experience like, wow, look what I built. Look, and I love coming to end of job. It's like my favorite thing in the world to be like, stamp, done, and it gave me a moment to reflect on that, which was lovely.
Very cool. What was the structure of the deal, if you don't mind sharing? I don't need to know the numbers, but was it an all cash deal? Did you spread it out over a period of time? What did it look like?
Yeah, there was a down payment and now she's paying a mortgage. So yeah. So we did a payment plan because she is also a solopreneur. And so we kept it really like what was going to serve everybody at the highest good for all. And that was what she could do. And I'm sure if I had kept looking, I could have found a lump sum offer, but having someone who I trusted was far more important to me than having cash in hand.
Yeah, that's interesting. As business owners, it's sometimes interesting to understand our motivations.
Mhm.
Legacy is a common word that you often hear, and
Yeah.
I would argue that's kind of legacy. What you're talking about is, how is it going to be taken care of? Are the clients going to be taken care of? So it sounds like that was really important to you, even over money
Oh, yeah.
to some degree. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, because
interesting.
technically, so you have to remember, I sold in 2021. Like my valuation was low because I was on this upswing and then COVID. And
Yeah.
I did not sell during COVID. I still made money because I didn't shut the site down, but I did not push. All I did was educate about what was happening timely and relevant. So my valuation was significantly lower than it would have been had I sold in 2019. And I was at peace with all of that. It was like, I just don't want to build it up again. Like this is for someone else to take.
So now you sell your business.
Hmm.
What's your next phase? Like, what did you already have a plan, or what was after that in your mind?
I had a very fallow season. I played in the garden. I babied my babies. Like I just took time because I had been going like a million miles an hour. And I say I took time, but what that also actually means is that I took on like 2 friends as SEO clients and started doing SEO consulting, but like low key, like low pressure, not like these, big, like we got to do this now kind of projects. We went at our own pace. And it was like a retainer, and we just worked through it together and grew their traffic. And I was like, oh, it worked on my site and it works on their site, which I knew it would, but they just had no desire to tackle SEO in
Sure.
any respect. So, but it was far less pressure filled than my days with higher scores. So it felt like a total vacation, and it was wonderful. So in that, I was like, well, all my friends look at me sideways when I say SEO, but I love it because when my kids were born, well, everybody's out there like hustling, churning the next piece of content out. I worked the 4-hour work week. I sent some emails, I made some money, and I got to play with my kid. So I'm very bullish on passive income. I'm very bullish on online courses, and I love SEO as the conduit for that. And so I'm just continuing to play in that space. I have an SEO course now. I have a course about naming your purpose, which was like the best little gift that didn't transfer with higher scores. I built it for high school students, but it actually, I think, helped me stay more grounded in parenthood, in entrepreneurship. It helped me kind of untangle all these things. And so naming my purpose was such a gift that came out of my time with higher scores, and I got to take it with me.
So naming your purpose, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Tell me about that a little bit. Like, how do we name our purpose?
Yeah. So the first step is to just acknowledge that what you are meant to do, you probably always have done, and perhaps have shape-shifted to conformity or to other people's expectations, and kind of put sludge over those gems that were inside of you to begin with. I always say with my kids, I want to be an archaeologist, not an architect. I don't want to build something that I want to see. I want to uncover who they truly are. And I think we all have to like give ourselves that gift as well. So it's about naming your core values, your currently held values, not your aspirational ones that everybody tells you you ought to hold. And that helps sort of place the magnetic pull of true north. But I think the other thing that's also resonant and also helps feed that magnetic pull is your grandest vision for your life. And so once we sort of identify what that true north is, we put a statement as the needle that keeps us on track. And it's all about, if you've read Atomic Habits, the 1% nudge, how you end up from LA and, New York, not DC, or the other way around. I can't remember how he says it, but it's about course correction. And I've always loved education and working with kids. And one of the things that makes me saddest is when I see folks go, I see a problem and I'm not going to help this child who is now setting off on a vector that could be nudged just slightly with tools or strategies or resources. Like, it breaks my heart. And I don't think we talk about this with our children enough. And I also think that when we become parents or business owners, we start to feel fractured and fragmented if we don't know our purpose, right? If we are a subset of all the things we do, then our self-worth is tied to our actions, as opposed to standing in the truth of who we are and planting our feet and saying, I am on this course heading, and there are these myriad things I do to live in my purpose each and every day.
Good stuff. Really good stuff. Hey, wanted to talk a little bit about SEO.
Yeah.
The world of SEO is obviously a lot different than it was 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, and probably will be different 6 months from now. So just your feeling is that's still a very viable area for people to try to drive traffic. Is that your take on it? And what are your thoughts in terms of it changing and potentially not being as viable?
So I am totally counterculture on this. A lot of people like decry the latest algorithm update and daring me. Like, Google's algorithms, unlike social, Google's algorithms will always bend in favor of elevating quality content because his reputation depends on it. 8.5 billion searches on Google a day. That's how many there are. And according to Ahrefs, which is the SEO tool I use, only 96.5, or I should say not only, 96.5% of web pages on the internet are not found at all via organic search. They get zero traffic. So when you start like looking at those numbers, you're like, wait a minute, like, there has to be a way for us to get in the churn. And there is, and it's by creating quality content that keeps your end user in mind. So a lot of like the bro marketer SEO like hacks, those come and go. But if we can use the timeless SEO principles, things like doing quality keyword research, thinking about the person who is typing that in, what is the pain point behind them going to Google and asking that question? Can we address that? Can we create transformation? Can we have the language that speaks to that person first and also to the bots? Can we hold both of those threads and really help both of those creatures understand what it is we're trying to teach and how we help? And so for me, it's about leveraging those timeless principles, and whether it's, SEO, geo, like, it doesn't matter. If you are delivering quality content and keeping a finger on the pulse loosely of what's going on, then you can create content that wins.
Okay. That makes sense. I just sometimes when I look at, for example, when you look at some, I'm not even talking necessarily popular search terms, but search terms, it amazes me. So I use SEMrush.
Okay, yeah.
I know Ahrefs too, and it'd probably give both the same example. But if you looked up a keyword search term, you'll look at like the first 10 are all like 70 domain rated or 50 domain,
Right.
like really like powerful websites. And I'm like, wow, if that's a term I wanted to get to, it would be very almost impossible for a
Yes.
small player to be able to penetrate that. But I do get your point is very valid that if you just have great content, people will gravitate and figure out a way to get to it. I mean, I think it almost happens, like to your point, organically.
So keyword difficulty is incredibly important. People always ask about volume, but difficulty is actually more important. And I find the
Okay.
reason I go with Ahrefs, I did them all. I went Moz and SEMrush and Ahrefs. Ahrefs has no affiliate program, no free trial, and I still leverage it because the way they do their keyword difficulty, the granularity that you have around it, it's more hopeful than SEMrush and Moz.
Mm.
And I also like the UI. It's far more friendly for me. But what I think is interesting is that yes, so I would be curious, like if you have a particular term and you want to send it to me, I'll tell you what it is in Ahrefs. But
Sure.
the thing about it is that if you take keyword difficulty into account and you write those lower difficulty posts, you can rank. Like I have a book or a book list, 9 books to help you name your purpose. It feeds into my core values, which then feeds into my Big Y Life course. And it's the purpose side of my business. It is driving, I think, 2,000 users a month now, but it's a 0, right? It's like a 0 and a 1. And it's starting to like bubble up. And I'm in the first page of Google search for a lot of disparate terms. And so that's the other thing. Do you know the movie Galaxy Quest?
Yeah.
So you remember when Taggart at the end, sorry, spoilers if nobody's seen the movie from the 90s, he like drags through the minefield. It looks like an evasive maneuver, but what he's doing is he's coming around and now all the mines are behind him and he shoves them into Sirius's ship.
Right.
It's like that. You pick one keyword and suddenly all these other keywords are activated and you're dragging them along. And so you can rank for a lot of different terms that maybe you didn't even know, or if you're like more of a Titanic person, the 10% above and the 90% of the iceberg that's underneath the water that you can't see. So I think SEO is a really hopeful exercise often, especially the keyword research part, because you can see what people who are searching in relative anonymity, obviously their data is being, mined and all that. But there's this sense of like, you get a visibility into what matters. And I think sometimes we're such good practitioners of what it is we do that we forget what it's like to not know what we know. And so if you've ever had that like disheartening moment as an entrepreneur of like, oh, I wish I had known about you a year ago, I could have really used your help in that moment. That's like the worst thing because you're like, I was standing here saying this thing and they were looking over there. Whereas like everybody goes to Google. Google is a verb for a reason. So if you can, even for a few posts, it doesn't mean every post you write has to rank, but like for a few posts, just optimize them and elevate them in the direction of the person who is searching. And sometimes you can get like so caught up in what we want to say in our terminology. Like if you're not Tony Robbins, maybe you shouldn't use your branded language. Like maybe you should use what the other person's using to build that bridge and invite them into your ecosystem.
Yeah. The reason I used Ahrefs for a while, and I'm not nearly as technical as you in terms of understanding of SEO and stuff. The reason I went to SEMrush, and it's embarrassing to even admit this, I like the ranking position report. It shows you can see current in previous period, whereas I don't think Ahrefs does as easy of a job of seeing the changes.
Yeah.
And so it just, honestly, it's vanity. It's just fun to see. It's fun to see the changes every day or every week. And that was the other thing. Ahrefs, I think, only does once a week. It updates your rankings, or not the report shows the change in your rankings. Google obviously is doing all the time.
Yeah.
But whereas SEMrush is like constantly. Now, logically, it doesn't matter daily. It just matters over a period of time. I get that, but it's still fun to see.
But you like to log in.
Yeah, it's still fun to see it. So anyway, sorry to kind of
Fair
geek out.
enough. No, you use the tool that works for you. Like at the end of the day, they each have their own data set. The only thing you don't want to do like Ghostbusters and don't cross the streams, because the data is going to look different. And like,
Right.
it's fun as like a single comparison point, but you'll go crazy if you have like too
Right.
many dashboards. So just pick the one that works for you.
What do you, I know online courses are obviously something you're very big on. What do
Yeah.
you, there's a lot more tools nowadays in terms of the different services that you can use. Do you have a preferred one, or what are your thoughts around if you're going to do an online course, someone using X tool?
So I'm a control freak. And also I'm into SEO, which means I am aware of Google's behavior metrics that they are tracking. And so I want everybody on my site, only on my site. I don't want a subdomain. I don't want to be fracturing
Wow.
where I am. So every time somebody signs up for something free or paid, they are sent to a second page on my website, a thank you page. Then they hit a second page on my website. So like all feeds the machine.
Okay.
They get an email, they come right back. And that is true of somebody who purchases or gets something free.
Wow.
And so I really want to be thinking about, how do I show Google that I take care of the people he sends me? And I call him he because it's Uncle Google. It's Uncle Google.
Okay.
He's benevolent. So I always want to make sure I'm thinking about that. So I also, like with Higher Scores, I had it built out custom at first,
Wow.
and then I managed it. It's a WordPress instance, but my WordPress site is through Thrive Themes. Thrive Themes has an LMS called Thrive Apprentice. It integrates with Thrive Cart, which is not the same thing, even though they're both Thrive, because everybody just wants to thrive, I guess. All integrates, and so it all lives on my site. It is gated login to my WordPress site.
So is Thrive Themes the framework, kind of like an Elementor framework? So
Yes.
it's because you said it's Word. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's WordPress, but then it's got like an Elementor framework that allows you to do things, and then it happens to have like, I don't know if it's a plugin, but an LMS type part to it that you can add into it. Is that am I saying that right?
Yes. So
Okay.
Thrive Themes has a myriad offering of
Okay.
marketing tools. Like they have Thrive Leads that manages your pop-ups, but it's all a single, I think it's like $250 a year. And you can gate your pages. They have the ability to do ultimatum campaigns using custom links through, I use ActiveCampaign for my email.
Okay. Yeah.
And then my email is like another whole chat, like making sure you're really taking care of the people who handed you money and supporting them, and not just being like, here's the keys, go drive the car, really providing that support. I'm actually in the process of creating the Digital Entrepreneurs Mastermind, which is an accountability group with a forum on the site,
Very
plus group coaching. So right now we have a LinkedIn group, and I'm just not loving the interface over there. I am really resistant to social. I don't love my attention being a commodity. And so I like social for social, but I don't like it for building a business. So I'm building out a forum, old school forum. So
Very cool.
we're going back in time here.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
I like social for social, but I don't like it for building a business. So I'm building out a forum, old school forum. So we're going back in time here.
Very, very cool. So, hey, I want to, as I'm wrapping up here, I want to roll into some action items that I picked out from some things you said. Feel free to add to them or correct me or whatever you need to do. First one was healthy boundaries. I love the healthy boundaries. Some of the things that you kind of cited was grayscaling your phone. I've never done that before. I wonder if it'll prevent me from looking at my phone. I'm going to try it. Obviously, turning off notifications, trying to turn away from no night working, things like that. So I love the healthy boundaries. I think that's important for entrepreneurs of all levels to think about. Another one that I really loved, you talked about zooming out when looking at things. So we tend to get so deep into the weeds. We've evaluate ourselves on those deep in the weeds, which we miss the incremental steps that happen when you zoom out. So I love that. I think that's huge. And then the last one I actually changed. It was on the last thing that you said that just hit me a lot, is keep people on your website. So many times I'm guilty of this, my thank you page goes to I don't know who it goes to, Active Campaign or whoever. I'm doing all these things where I'm using all these tools. And sometimes I'm taking people off my webpage, which has two things. One, I'm getting them off my webpage, which is a no-no. And then two, I'd never really thought about how Google might interpret that in terms of the more they're staying on your page, the more Google's looking at the behavior and rewarding you for that. So those were the three things I got out of our conversation. I'm sure there were many more I could have got out of there. Anything you want to add or amend to what I just said?
No, I love it. And if those are your takeaways, I am very, very happy.
Yeah, no, they're great. And so, hey, just in terms of wrapping up, your website, the one I have here is organicmarketingecosystem.com.
Yes.
So folks, go ahead and check that out, organicmarketingecosystem.com. If people wanted to reach out to you anywhere else, where do you want them to go? Is that the main site or you got another one for us?
So even that URL redirects to my name, which is hard to spell, laurengaggioli.com. I do also have a free DIY audit. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, I don't know how my website is doing right now, I have an audit tool that I walk you through. It's a free 3-part mini course, and you can find it at laurengaggioli.com/DIY audit. That will also direct you to my web audit services page. So if you would rather have somebody else do it, I'm happy to do it for you. But if you want to just get in and really quickly leverage some free tools to sort of see how you're performing, I would love to support you with that in either way.
Very cool. And I'll put both of those websites, of course, at the thinktyler.com show notes, as well as I have a couple other links too. I'll put in there too. Lauren, can't thank you enough for being on the show. I think you, one, I love your energy. I love the action tips that you give. And I have mad respect for 4 runs in 4 days, which is like, you're borderline crazy as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
But also I have mad respect for it too.
Thank you so much, Tyler. This was great fun. I appreciate you having me here.
Okay, take care.
You too.
That's all for this episode of Think Business with Tyler. But we have plenty more resources to help you in your pursuit of business excellence on our website at thinktyler.com. If you'd like to be featured in a future episode of the show, feel free to reach out to us on social media at think_Tyler. We look forward to helping you think life, think success, and think business.
Welcome to the Candle Power Hour. Come with us backstage behind the scenes of show business spanning over 4 decades and bringing you the experiences that can only be told by the people who were there.
Our guests are from the A-list, the F-list, and everyone in between. Get set for some of the most insane, hilarious, and inspiring stories you will ever hear.
I'm Mercury.
And I'm Diego.
Your host for the Candle Power Hour.
Today is working for me. Do you believe that for yourself? Hey, I'm Pastor Julie, and I want to empower you through encouragement. Inviting you to my podcast, Big Truth Encouragement, where I unpack living a faith-filled life. I created my podcast for the ladies, but gentlemen, you'll gain something too. So I invite you to listen to Big Truth Encouragement on Electricast and any platform where you listen to your podcast.
Electricast.